Dawn breaks over the jungle. Steel matting gleams beneath tropical haze as maintenance crews strip away netting from 12 angular shapes. These are Lockheed P-38F Lightnings, twin-engine, twin-boom fighters unlike anything the Pacific has seen. The 39th Fighter Squadron, 35th Fighter Group, sits ready. Captain Thomas Lynch scans the morning briefing one final time. Coast watchers have spotted something building over the horizon. 40 Japanese aircraft inbound to Buna, fighters and bombers both. Among Lynch's pilots is a young lieutenant on temporary assignment, a farm boy from Wisconsin named Richard Bong. None of them know it yet, but this morning will shatter every assumption Japanese naval aviation holds about air combat in the Pacific. For 13 months, Japanese pilots have owned these guys. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero has become legend, a fighter so nimble, so deadly in a turning fight, that Allied pilots have learned one brutal lesson: never try to dogfight a Zero. Its tight turning radius, exceptional climb rate, and experienced pilots have made it the nightmare of every American airman flying P-39 Airacobras or P-40 Warhawks. But the Lightning represents something entirely different. Not an incremental improvement, but a philosophical revolution in how fighters can dominate the sky. Twin Allison V1710 engines generate 2,300 horsepower combined. Turbochargers maintain that power at altitudes where other fighters gasp for breath. Maximum speed touches 414 miles per hour, 80 miles faster than a Zero. Service ceiling reaches 44,000 feet, higher than Japanese pilots trained to operate. And concentrated in the nose, firing straight ahead without convergence issues, sits devastating firepower. One 20mm Hispano-Tannon and four 50 caliber Browning machine guns. Every round flies true along the aircraft's centerline. Lieutenant Bong studied these specifications during training at Hamilton Field. He understood what instructors hammered into every Lightning pilot. You do not turn with Zeros. You use altitude, speed, and firepower. You strike from above, dive through enemy formations faster than they can react, then climb back to safety before they can respond. It requires discipline, patience, and complete abandonment of traditional dogfighting instincts. Everything American pilots learned about air combat must be unlearned and rebuilt from first principles. Veteran pilots from Rabaul-based air groups fly standard escort patterns protecting Mitsubishi G-4M Betty bombers and Aichi D-3A Val bombers. These are the cream of Japanese naval aviation, men who swept across the Pacific from Pearl Harbor to the Dutch East Indies, rarely meeting serious resistance. American fighters typically struggle above 15,000 feet. Their climb rates make them predictable, vulnerable. This morning's mission appears routine. Escort the strike package, suppress any opposition, return to base. Some pilots have noticed occasional twin-boom aircraft in recent weeks, but intelligence remains uncertain about their purpose. Perhaps reconnaissance planes, possibly light bombers. The concept that Americans have engineered a fighter specifically designed to negate every Zero advantage hasn't occurred to Japanese tactical planners. At 18,000 feet, Captain Lynch's formation holds every card. He pushes his Lightning into a dive that accelerates past 400 miles per hour. Behind him, 11 more P-38s select targets and follow. The concentrated nose armament allows them to open fire from ranges exceeding 400 yards, well beyond effective range for the Zero's lighter guns. Lynch's opening burst obliterates a Nakajima K-43 Oscar. The Japanese fighter simply disintegrates under impact from 20mm shells and 50 caliber rounds. No warning, no chance to evade, just instant, overwhelming violence. Lynch pulls up into a climbing turn, converting speed back to altitude. Several Zeros attempt to follow. Pilots pull back on their control sticks, trying to climb after the strange twin-boom fighter. Warning bells sound in their cockpits. Their aircraft begin shuddering violently as dive speeds approach 400 miles per hour, the structural limit beyond which control surfaces risk failure. They watch helplessly as the American fighters climb away, completely untouchable. Lieutenant Bong spots a Zero closing on Lynch's tail. He rolls into a deflection shot,
leading the target precisely. His first combat burst connects. The Zero erupts in flames and spins earthward, trailing black smoke. As Bong pulls up, 3 more Zeros converge on his position. Any other American fighter would be in desperate trouble. Bong simply pushes both throttles forward and dives away, accelerating past 450 miles per hour. The Japanese pilots can only watch as the Lightning disappears into the distance. They cannot catch him. They cannot follow. They cannot even get close enough for their guns to matter. Pulling out of his dive just above the jungle canopy, Bong spots an Aichi-Val dive bomber recovering from its attack run. A short burst from 100 yards sends it crashing into the trees in a fireball. 2 victories in his first combat engagement. The beginning of what will become the highest-scoring American ace career of the entire war. When the smoke clears, the 39th Fighter Squadron claims 12 Japanese aircraft destroyed. Lynch gets 1, Bong gets 2, Second Lieutenant Carl Planck adds another. No P-38s are lost. Not one. The Americans climb back to altitude, reform, and return to Port Moresby with fuel to spare. For them, it's a successful morning. For the Japanese pilots who survive, it's a revelation that will send shockwaves through their entire command structure. Japanese after-action reports expressed confusion bordering on build disbelief. Pilots describe aircraft with impossible speed and climb performance. They report being engaged from ranges they didn't think possible. The comfortable world of horizontal maneuvering combat, where Japanese pilots excelled through superior turning ability, has suddenly been replaced by a vertical battlefield. A 3-dimensional arena where altitude and velocity determine who lives and who dies. The rules have changed overnight, and Japanese naval aviation doesn't yet understand how completely. Intelligence officers at Rabaul scrambled to reassess the P-38's capabilities. Its twin-engine configuration led them to categorize it as a heavy fighter, unsuitable for air-to-air combat. They assumed it was designed for bomber escort or ground attack. The possibility that American engineers created something fundamentally new, a fighter achieving superiority through vertical maneuvering rather than horizontal agility, challenges everything they thought they knew about fighter design. The Lightning's turbochargers maintained full power at altitudes where normally aspirated engines lose 50% of their output. Its diving speed approaches the sound barrier faster than any Japanese aircraft can follow without catastrophic structural failure. Its ability to convert speed into altitude means P-38 pilots can regain their perch above enemy formations within seconds of attacking. Every physical attribute of the Lightning has been optimized for a new kind of warfare. On January 7, 2013, the new reality becomes undeniable. 9 P-38s escorting bombers over Leh encounter approximately 20 Japanese fighters. Traditional doctrine suggests the outnumbered Americans should adopt defensive positions. Instead, the Lightning climbed to 25,000 feet and initiate dive attacks from positions the Japanese cannot reach. Lieutenant Richard Bong, now flying regularly with the 39 Squadron while his own unit awaits P-38 delivery, demonstrates the type's lethal efficiency with surgical precision.
Bong dives from altitude and destroys a K-43 Oscar with a deflection shot at 300 yards. As Japanese fighters attempt to climb toward him, he executes a chandelle, a climbing turn that carries him back to 20,000 feet, completely outside their engagement envelope. From this perch, he selects another target and repeats the process. The geometry is something Japanese pilots have never encountered. A Zero can outturn any American fighter in horizontal maneuvering, but it cannot match the P-38's speed in a dive without breaking apart. It cannot follow the Lightning's zoom climb without stalling. It cannot catch a P-38 that chooses to disengage using superior straight-line speed. The horizontal battlefield where Japanese pilots reign supreme has been replaced by a 3-dimensional arena where altitude and velocity trump turning radius. Veteran Japanese pilots struggled desperately to adapt. Their entire training emphasized close-range maneuvering combat, getting on an opponent's tail through superior turning ability. Against the P-38, these tactics are worse than useless. By the time a Zero pilot maneuvers into firing position, the Lightning is already a mile away, climbing through altitude bands the Japanese fighter cannot reach.
Japanese pilots who enjoyed qualitative superiority since the war's beginning find themselves helpless against an enemy refusing to fight on their terms. The stress of constantly scanning above, knowing death could plummet from unreachable altitudes, erodes morale in ways Japanese military culture has never confronted. Some pilots develop combat fatigue symptoms previously unknown in their ranks. Others request transfers to ground units rather than face the twin-boom devils again. Letters home, captured after island battles, reveal deep demoralization. Pilots write of nightmares about shadows diving from the sun. They describe watching friends and mentors fall one by one to an enemy that has redefined combat itself. By February 1943, P-38 presence in the Southwest Pacific expands rapidly. The 9th Fighter Squadron of the 49th Fighter Group finally receives their Lightnings. The 80th Fighter Squadron of the 8th Fighter Group begins transitioning from P-39s to P-38s. The 475th Fighter Group, an all-Lightning unit, forms in Australia. Each new squadron arriving in theater has studied combat reports from pilots like Lynch and Bong, refining tactics that maximize the P-38's advantages while minimizing any exposure to enemy strengths. Training programs instituted by squadron commanders emphasize altitude discipline above all else. Altitude is life insurance becomes the mantra drilled into every new pilot. Speed is life. Pilots learn to resist every instinct screaming at them to turn with enemy fighters. Instead, they maintain high velocity and use vertical maneuvers. The high-speed yo-yo converts excess speed into altitude while reversing direction. The barrel roll attack uses the Lightning's roll rate to keep guns on target while preserving momentum. Every tactic exploits the P-38's strengths while avoiding situations where the Zero's turning ability might matter. Japanese attempts to counter these tactics prove largely ineffective. The Kawasaki Ki-61 Hien, called Tony by Allied intelligence, features a liquid-cooled engine and heavier armament designed specifically to engage high-altitude American bombers. But even the Tony cannot match P-38 performance above 20,000 feet. The Nakajima Ki-44 Shoki emphasizes speed and climb rate over maneuverability, but still falls short of Lightning capabilities. Neither aircraft appears in sufficient numbers to challenge American air superiority. Intelligence reports from Japanese units reveal growing desperation. Pilots receive instructions to avoid combat with P-38s unless possessing overwhelming numerical superiority in advantageous position. Even then, engagement is discouraged above 15,000 feet, where the P-38's performance advantage becomes insurmountable. Some units attempt to lure P-38s into low-altitude turning fights. American pilots have learned discipline. They maintain altitude and refuse engagement on unfavorable terms. The Japanese are discovering what it means to face an enemy who controls every variable of the engagement. Lockheed's production line in Burbank, California achieves remarkable efficiency. By March 1943, the factory produces 10 P-38s per day. Each aircraft requires approximately 37,000 man-hours to construct, but American industrial capacity makes this investment sustainable. Japanese aircraft production, constrained by material shortages and bombing damage, struggles to replace combat losses. The arithmetic of attrition warfare becomes inexorable. Training disparities widen the gap further. American P-38 pilots arrive in theater with 300 or more flight hours, including 50 hours in type. They've practiced vertical tactics, gunnery, and formation flying extensively. Japanese replacement pilots rushed through abbreviated training programs, averaged less than 100 total flight hours. Many have never flown above 20,000 feet before encountering P-38s in actual combat. They're being asked to fight veteran American pilots in superior aircraft with minimal preparation. It's a recipe for catastrophe. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea in March 1943 demonstrates the P-38's strategic impact beyond air-to-air combat. Lightnings fly top cover for Allied bombers attacking a major Japanese convoy reinforcing New Guinea. When Zero escorts rise to intercept, the P-38s execute perfect vertical tactics, destroying multiple Japanese fighters while preventing any effective defense of the convoy below. 8 transport ships and 4 destroyers are sunk, dealing a crushing blow to Japanese reinforcement efforts. Thousands of troops drown in the Bismarck Sea. The P-38 has proven itself not just a fighter, but a strategic weapon that can protect bombers well enough to ensure mission success. Captain Thomas Lynch of the 39th Fighter Squadron refines vertical tactics to an art form. His precise, methodical approach to combat results in 20 confirmed victories before his death in March 1944. Lieutenant Richard Bong continues his remarkable scoring streak, demonstrating an uncanny ability to position his P-38 for perfect deflection shots. His understanding of geometry, speed, and angles transforms air combat into something approaching mathematical precision. In August 1943, a new name enters the Lightning Ace roster. Lieutenant Thomas McGuire, assigned to the 475th Fighter Group's 431st Fighter Squadron, scores his first victories on August 18th over Wewak. Flying top cover for bombers, McGuire's flight encounters approximately 20 Japanese fighters. In his first combat engagement, McGuire shoots down 2 K-43 Oscars and 1 Ki-61 Tony. He becomes an ace in just 2 days, after adding 2 more victories on August 21st. His combat career has barely begun, but his impact on P-38 tactics will be profound. McGuire's combat philosophy emphasizes aggressive vertical tactics and precise gunnery. He eventually writes a manual titled Combat Tactics in the Southwest Pacific Area that becomes required reading throughout the 5th Air Force. His techniques include the McGuire roll, a high-speed barrel roll maintaining offensive position while preserving momentum, and the vertical reverse, using the P-38's climb capability to reverse positions with a pursuing enemy. McGuire doesn't just fly the Lightning, he teaches others how to extract every ounce of performance from it. The strategic implications of P-38 dominance extend far beyond individual combat. The Lightning's range exceeds 1,000 miles with drop tanks, allowing American planners to strike Japanese bases previously considered secure. Fighter sweeps can reach Rabaul from New Guinea, achieving air superiority before bombers arrive. The ability to escort bombers throughout their entire mission profile eliminates vulnerability windows that Japanese interceptors previously exploited. No longer can Japanese fighters wait for the moment when American bombers turn for home, their escorts running low on fuel. The P-38 has range to stay with the bombers all the way to target and all the way back.
American codebreakers intercept Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's travel itinerary for an inspection tour of Solomon Islands bases. The opportunity is unprecedented. Yamamoto planned Pearl Harbor. He's Japan's most brilliant naval strategist. Eliminating him would deal a devastating blow to Japanese morale and operational planning. But the mission requirements are extreme. A 435-mile overwater flight from Guadalcanal, precise navigation without landmarks, and exact timing to arrive at the intercept point when Yamamoto's aircraft passes through. Only the P-38 possesses the range, speed, and navigation equipment for such a mission. Major John Mitchell of the 339th Fighter Squadron, 347th Fighter Group, leads 16 Lightnings on the longest fighter intercept mission of the war. Flying at wave-top height to avoid radar detection, maintaining absolute radio silence throughout, the P-38s navigate by dead reckoning for over 2 hours. Mitchell's navigation proves perfect. At 9:34 a.m., exactly as planned, Yamamoto's 2 Mitsubishi G4M Betty bombers appear with their 6-0 escorts. Captain Thomas Lanphier Jr. and Lieutenant Rex Barber roll into their attack as the top cover engages escorts. Barber's concentrated nose firepower sends the Admiral's bomber crashing into the jungle, killing Japan's most brilliant naval strategist. The psychological impact ripples through Japanese military leadership like an earthquake. If American fighters can reach out across hundreds of miles of ocean with such precision, no one is safe. The myth of Japanese invincibility, already damaged by Midway and Guadalcanal, suffers another crushing blow. The P-38 has demonstrated not just tactical superiority, but strategic reach Japanese planners never anticipated. Following Yamamoto's death, Japanese fighter tactics undergo desperate revision. Pilots receive instructions to attack P-38s only when possessing altitude advantage, numerical superiority of at least 3-1, and surprise. Even then, engagement must be brief with immediate disengagement if the initial attack fails. These defensive tactics represent complete reversal from the aggressive spirit that characterized Japanese fighter doctrine at the war's beginning. The Imperial Japanese naval fighter pilots, once the world's most feared, are now being told to run from American fighters. The Kawasaki Ki-84 Hayate, called Frank by Allied intelligence, appears in late 1943. It can match P-38 speed at medium altitudes, but still cannot compete above 25,000 feet. The Mitsubishi J2M Raiden emphasizes climb rate and high-altitude performance, but sacrifices range and maneuverability. Neither aircraft appears in sufficient numbers to challenge American air superiority. And even when they do appear, they're often flown by inexperienced pilots who cannot exploit whatever advantages the new designs might offer. By November 1943, the transformation is complete. Japanese daylight operations over the Solomons have virtually ceased. Naval vessels move only under cover of darkness. Supply runs to forward bases are conducted by submarines and fast destroyers in nighttime dashes, risking everything to deliver minimal supplies. The proud Japanese Naval Air Force that swept across the Pacific in 1941-42 has been reduced to furtive defensive operations, hiding from an enemy that owns the daylight sky. The statistics tell a stark story. In the years since significant P-38 operations began, Japanese fighter units in the Solomons and New Guinea have suffered catastrophic losses. The 251st Air Group, which began 1943 with 80 pilots, has only 10 original members surviving by year-end. The 204th Air Group loses 70% of its pilots in 6 months of operations. The 582nd Air Group is withdrawn from combat entirely after losing 80% of its aircraft in 4 months of operations against P-38-equipped American units. These aren't just numbers. They represent the systematic destruction of Japanese most experienced fighter pilots, men whose skills cannot be replaced in any training program, no matter how intensive. American losses, while not insignificant, are sustainable. P-38 squadrons typically achieve kill ratios of 5-to-1 or better. More importantly, American pilots who survive being shot down are often rescued by air-sea rescue services and returned to combat. Japanese pilots who go down over water usually drown. Japan lacks effective rescue operations. American aircraft damaged in combat are repaired and returned to service. Japanese aircraft with similar damage are often abandoned due to lack of spare parts. Every advantage compounds. Every disadvantage multiplies. By December 1943, Lockheed has delivered over 2,000 P-38s to combat theaters. Monthly production exceeds 400 aircraft. Japanese production of all fighter types barely reaches 500 per month, and many are retained in the home islands for defense. The arithmetic of attrition warfare has become inexorable. Japan cannot replace losses fast enough. America can outproduce Japanese losses several times over. Training standards diverge even further. American P-38 pilots arriving in late 1943 have extensive training in vertical tactics, instrument flying, and long-range navigation. Many have practiced combat maneuvers against captured Japanese aircraft, understanding exactly their opponent's capabilities and limitations. Japanese replacement pilots rush through programs shortened from 2 years to 6 months, arrive with minimal combat preparation and no experience against P-38s. They're learning on the job, and the job is killing them. The human dimension of this transformation cannot be overlooked. Japanese pilots who entered the war as elite warriors, confident in their superiority, find themselves helpless against an enemy that cannot reach or catch. Letters home, captured after island battles, reveal deep demoralization. Some pilots write about nightmares about twin-boom shadows diving from the sun. Others request transfers to ground units rather than face P-38s again. The psychological destruction is as complete as the physical. American pilots conversely fly with growing confidence. The P-38 gives them every advantage: speed, altitude, firepower, and range. They can choose when and how to engage, always maintaining initiative. This psychological edge proves as valuable as technological superiority. Confident pilots fly more aggressively, take calculated risks, and achieve better results. The feedback loop reinforces itself. Success breeds confidence, confidence enables more success. By April 1944, he has surpassed Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I record of 26 victories. His combat technique has evolved to near perfection. Bong climbs to 30,000 feet, beyond reach of any Japanese fighter, then selects targets carefully. His attacks are swift, precise, and lethal. He averages less than 100 rounds fired per victory, demonstrating remarkable gunnery skill that turns the P-38's concentrated firepower into a surgical instrument. Bong's eventual total of 40 confirmed victories, all scored in P-38s, represents not just personal skill, but systematic superiority. His victims include veteran Japanese aces who simply cannot counter the Lightning's performance advantages. In one engagement over Hollandaria, Bong shoots down 3 Japanese fighters in less than 5 minutes using perfect vertical tactics that leave his opponents unable to respond. He's not just winning fights, he's demonstrating that with the right equipment and tactics, American pilots can dominate any aerial battlefield. Thomas McGuire pushes P-38 capabilities even further. His manual on combat tactics becomes doctrine throughout the Pacific theater. McGuire emphasizes mutual support, with P-38 elements working in coordinated vertical scissors that trap Japanese fighters between multiple attacking Lightnings. His eventual 38 victories, scored between August 1943 and January 1945, demonstrate the lethal efficiency of properly executed tactics. McGuire doesn't just fight, he teaches, refines, and systematizes P-38 employment into a science.
The G model introduces improved turbochargers, maintaining power above 30,000 feet. The H model features upgraded engines, producing 1,425 horsepower each. The J model relocates intercoolers to the engine booms, improving pilot visibility and high-altitude performance. The L model adds hydraulically boosted ailerons that dramatically improve roll rate. Each improvement shifts the combat equation further in America's favor. The P-38J operates effectively at 35,000 feet, altitudes where Japanese pilots require oxygen masks just to remain conscious, let alone fight effectively. The L model's improved roll rate eliminates the Zero's last marginal advantage in horizontal maneuvering. By late 1944, there is literally nothing a Japanese fighter can do better than a P-38L. Not turn, not climb, not dive, not accelerate, not maintain altitude. Nothing. The Lightning has evolved into the perfect Pacific fighter. Japanese responses become increasingly desperate. Ramming attacks, considered honorable if wasteful, increase as conventional tactics fail. Special attack units prepare for one-way missions. Some pilots attempt to lure P-38s into clouds, where visual confusion might negate the Lightning's advantages. These expedients achieve occasional success, but cannot alter fundamental imbalance. The P-38 is simply too good, flown by pilots too well-trained, supported by an industrial base too productive. Lightning squadrons achieve air superiority over Leyte within days of invasion. Japanese attempts to reinforce by air result in catastrophic losses. In one engagement, on November 2, 1944, P-38s of the 49th Fighting Group destroy 26 Japanese aircraft without loss. Such one-sided victories have become routine. The Japanese cannot contest control of the skies. They can only die trying. The strategic bombing campaign against Japanese bases is enabled by P-38 escort. B-24 Liberators can reach targets throughout the Southwest Pacific, knowing Lightning escorts will protect them. Japanese interceptors, unable to reach bomber altitude when P-38s are present, are reduced to ineffective attacks on the margins. Air bases, fuel depots, and supply centers are systematically destroyed. The infrastructure supporting Japanese operations crumbles under relentless bombing that P-38s make possible. The reconnaissance variant of the P-38, designated F-5, provides crucial intelligence throughout the campaign. Flying at extreme altitudes with cameras replacing guns, these photo Lightnings map every Japanese installation in the Pacific. Their speed and altitude capability make them nearly impossible to intercept. The intelligence they gather enabled precise targeting of subsequent attacks. Japanese commanders cannot hide. They cannot deceive. The F-5s see everything. By early 1945, Japanese air power in the Southwest Pacific has effectively ceased to exist. The few remaining experienced pilots have been withdrawn to defend the home islands. Replacement pilots with minimal training and obsolete aircraft are sacrificed in futile defensive actions. The P-38 has achieved not just air superiority, but air supremacy, complete unchallengeable control of the sky. Between December 1942 and January 1945, P-38 units in the Southwest Pacific claim over 1,500 Japanese aircraft destroyed in verified combat. American P-38 losses to enemy action total fewer than 200 aircraft. The kill ratio exceeds 7-to-1, unprecedented in aerial warfare. These numbers represent young men on both sides. Americans who flew with confidence and skill, Japanese who died with courage but without hope. Beyond statistics, the P-38's impact was transformational. It proved technological superiority, properly employed, could overcome numerical disadvantage and enemy experience. It demonstrated air superiority was not about dogfighting, but about controlling engagement parameters. It showed industrial capacity and training systems were as important as courage and skill.
The lessons learned above Pacific Islands would influence military aviation for generations. Veterans on both sides remembered the Lightning with a mixture of awe and respect. American pilots praised its versatility, reliability, and overwhelming performance advantages. They remembered the confidence it gave them, the control it provided, the safety of twin-engine redundancy over vast ocean distances. Japanese pilots recalled it as the aircraft that ended their dominance, the twin-boom devil that could not be caught or escaped. They remembered watching friends die, unable to help, unable to respond, unable to do anything but survive and retreat. Ground crews appreciated the P-38's rugged construction and maintainability despite complex systems. Mechanics could work on one engine while the other remained operational. Parts were available. Systems were reliable. The Lightning wasn't just effective in combat, it was sustainable in the field, a crucial advantage in the logistics-challenged Pacific theater. The P-38's success influenced post-war fighter development worldwide. The concept of vertical maneuvering became fundamental to jet-age combat. The importance of altitude and speed over turning ability shaped designs from the F-86 Sabre to modern fifth-generation fighters. The integration of technology, tactics, and training that the P-38 exemplified became the template for Air Force development across the globe. Lockheed's design team, led by Clarence Kelly Johnson, had created more than just a successful fighter. They revolutionized aerial warfare. The P-38's unique configuration, born from need to house two engines and turbochargers, produced capabilities single-engine fighters couldn't match. Its concentrated nose armament eliminated convergence problems plaguing wing-mounted guns. Its twin-engine redundancy provided safety over vast Pacific distances. Every design choice, every engineering decision contributed to creating the right weapon for the right war. The pilots who flew the Lightning wrote their own chapter in aviation history. Richard Bong's 40 victories stood as the American record for aerial combat, a record never broken. Thomas McGuire's 38 victories and tactical innovations influenced fighter doctrine for generations. Dozens of other P-38 aces demonstrated that, with proper equipment and training, American pilots could dominate any aerial battlefield. They weren't just warriors, they were the living proof that American innovation, industrial might, and training systems could defeat any enemy. Flying obsolete aircraft against overwhelming technological superiority, they continued fighting long after hope of victory had vanished. Their testimony about the P-38's impact provides invaluable historical perspective on the air war's evolution. They describe helplessness, frustration, and grudging respect for an enemy who changed every rule they understood about combat. Their voices, captured in post-war interviews, reveal the human cost of technological revolution and warfare. The physical legacy remains scattered across Pacific Islands. Crashed P-38s and Japanese fighters dot jungles and lagoons from New Guinea to the Philippines. Each wreck site represents young men who fought and died in a struggle that shaped the modern world. Local inhabitants still discover ammunition, instruments, and personal effects testifying to these aerial battles' intensity. The jungle reclaims aircraft, but memory persists. Museums worldwide preserve examples of the P-38 Lightning. Restored aircraft fly at airshows, their distinctive twin-boom silhouette instantly recognizable. Veterans gather to share stories of missions flown and friends lost. Historians continue studying campaigns where the Lightning proved decisive. The aircraft that shocked Japanese pilots in 1942 remains an icon of American aviation achievement, a symbol of innovation triumphing over experience.
Altitude and speed remain fundamental to fighter combat. Technological superiority must be matched with proper tactics and training. Industrial capacity and logistics determine sustained combat capability. The integration of intelligence, technology, and operations that enabled the Yamamoto mission remains the gold standard for precision strikes. Everything learned above the Solomons, refined above New Guinea, perfected above the Philippines influences how air forces fight today. The transformation from December 1942 to early 1945 was complete and irreversible. Skies that belonged to the Zero now belong to the Lightning. Japanese naval aviation, which began the war as perhaps the world's most capable air force, had been systematically destroyed. The myth of the invincible Zero pilot had been shattered by American technology and training. The proud warriors who swept across the Pacific had been defeated not by superior courage, but by superior systems. In final analysis, the P-38 Lightning's impact transcended mere victory. It represented American industrial democracy's answer to military authoritarianism. It proved innovation could overcome tradition, that technology could triumph over experience, that systematic superiority could defeat individual skill. The twin-boom fighter Japanese pilots initially dismissed changed the nature of aerial warfare forever. Every jet fighter that followed, every missile engagement beyond visual range, every precision strike guided by intelligence traces its lineage to those desperate battles above tropical islands. The P-38 didn't just win a campaign, it transformed the very nature of aerial warfare. It rewrote rules that had governed fighter combat since World War I. It proved that speed and altitude could trump maneuverability, that technology properly applied could overcome skill and experience, that industrial might combined with tactical innovation could achieve results impossible through bravery alone. For Japanese pilots who survived, memory of facing P-38s remained vivid decades later. In post-war interviews, veterans described helplessness of watching twin-boom shadows diving from unreachable altitudes. They recalled frustration of perfect deflection shots falling short because the Lightning was simply too fast to lead properly. They remembered friends and mentors falling one by one to an enemy that redefined combat rules. Some spoke with bitterness, others with grudging respect, all with recognition that they had faced something new under the sun. American veterans remembered differently. They recalled confidence that came from flying the best fighter in the Pacific. They remembered satisfaction of executing perfect diving attacks while maintaining complete control of engagement. They recalled relief of twin-engine safety over vast ocean distances and the advantage of always holding the high ground. They spoke of the Lightning with affection, respect, and gratitude for an aircraft that brought them home. It revolutionized aerial combat itself. In skies above the Solomon Islands between December 1942 and war's end, the future of air warfare was written. That future belonged not to the most maneuverable fighter or the most skilled pilot, but to the nation that could produce superior technology, train effective pilots, and sustain prolonged campaigns through industrial might and systematic excellence. By war's end, the P-38 Lightning had shocked, dismayed, and ultimately destroyed Japanese air power in the Pacific. The twin-boom fighter that Japanese pilots learned to fear had systematically eliminated their ability to contest control of the skies. In doing so, it secured American air superiority and hastened the end of the Pacific War. The revolution it began in those desperate battles continues to influence aerial warfare today, a lasting testament to American innovation and the courage of pilots who flew the Lightning into history. The aircraft that emerged from Lockheed's design studios in 1939 became the weapon that transformed the Pacific War. Its distinctive silhouette became symbol of American air power. Its performance became the standard against which all other fighters were measured. Its tactics became doctrine studied in every air force worldwide. The P-38 Lightning didn't just win battles, it changed how battles would be fought forever after. That is its true legacy, not victories tallied or enemies destroyed, but revolution achieved and sustained, transforming warfare itself through combination of technology, training, and tactical innovation that no enemy could match.